Coach DeMarco here with another Get Better Basketball Live. And today my guest is Coach Ben Murphy, who's going to share with us an innovative way to use game film with your team. This is something that I recommend all coaches do at least a couple of times per season. It's going to help your players to get better and become more reflective. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up now. Coach DeMarco here with Get Better Basketball Live, and today my guest is Coach Ben Murphy. Coach, welcome back to Get Better Basketball Live. Nice to have you back again.
Thanks for having me back. I think this is the third time we've done one of these, and it's always good to talk ball. We get Thanksgiving coming around the corner, and in Maine, they're letting us play basketball on December 14th. So as long as everything, cross your fingers and hope that we get to dribble the balls on December 14th.
That's exciting news. I know a lot of coaches are hopefully looking forward to the season this year, and hopefully their states are able to allow them to play. I'm excited about our topic today, and we've had a lot. Every time we talk, it's gotten a lot of great feedback from coaches out there. You've shared a lot on small-sided games so far, but today's a little bit different, and I'm very interested in this topic because I think film study for coaches, if you want players to get better, especially as you get into high school and beyond, it's really, really important. And you have what I would consider a pretty innovative idea with technology. And we're going to get into that in a couple of minutes, but just curious, where did you come up with this idea? Maybe you can take us into some of the background with, using game film with your players, and then what you decided to do with that game film, which is pretty interesting.
Sure. So I always thought that what I did with game film was very traditional and not very effective. I never thought that we were all that good at presenting film. I think we did it in a very traditional way. We would watch clips that were probably too long. We wouldn't focus on specific things to get better at. And I never thought that we used it as well as we could. And I was always looking for a better way to do it. And then I had to step away from coaching at the varsity level, and we don't do a lot of film study at the middle school level. So anyway, this summer going into this fall, my school has gone to a hybrid model, and a friend of mine introduced me to Edpuzzle, which I know a lot of teachers use for lesson plans, but I hadn't heard of a lot of coaches using it for game film. And I thought about kind of what it provided as a tool for students in any class. And I thought that it was a pretty unique way to connect with kids and have them kind of be held accountable for really watching film intently, and for kind of taking some ownership of the learning process, the mental process of, concepts that we're trying to teach and things like that. So we haven't rolled it out yet this year, but the plan is to do that once we get started this year. We get a couple of games under our belt. We're going to turn them into Edpuzzles and allow guys to look at those and answer some questions about the game that they're playing, so they can kind of see it the way coaches see it. Because I think that the way coaches look at film and the way players look at film are two different things. I'm looking for, did we get back on defense? And they're looking like, did I break that guy's ankles? So they're looking for the highlights and looking at that's a game. So with the attacker, this tool, we can kind of look at things the same way, which I think will be helpful.
Coach, what for coaches that either aren't familiar with Edpuzzle, or maybe coaches who are familiar with it as teachers, yep, what is it about Edpuzzle that you really like? You mentioned accountability. So what is it that you took from, this software that you use in your classroom? You're like, this would be great to apply to basketball.
Sure. Well, just ease of use first off. So you can take any video that's been uploaded. You might upload it to your own computer, or it might just exist on YouTube or something like that. And you can upload it to Edpuzzle and immediately start editing down to just the clips that you want out of that video. And then you can start pausing the video and asking questions as you go. So, in an English lesson, I might teach kids how to write a conclusion paragraph, and I might have an example of a really good one and go through all the details that make a conclusion paragraph kind of work. In basketball, it's the same way. You can cut it down to, you don't need to watch a whole game to get the gist of, some teaching points. And so you can chop it down to a smaller bite size that your kids can really get into. You can ask them questions about, really anything you want to focus on, whether it's your offensive sessions, short answer questions, things like that as you go. And the two things that I like about it is you can see who's done it and who's not. You can kind of hold them accountable that way. And then also it doesn't allow them to fast forward through it. Kids are big fans of kind of skimming through, and so am I, for the record, like, not to cast blame on the younger generation. Like, if I'm skimming through a video, I'll hit the fast forward button as much as anyone. So this prevents them from doing that. So they've got to watch it through kind of once. And then if they don't kind of see an answer, they got to go back and take a second look at it. So it forces some engagement with kids. No matter what they're watching, then they probably have to go back and watch it more than once. And so when you're done, you can see how long, it took them to get through a video, how many times they might have watched a certain section. And if they got this year when we use it, my thought is that instead of watching the film, getting everybody together in the traditional way and watching film, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to have them complete these Edpuzzles early, and then we come into film, hopefully everybody's got it done, and then we can just start discussing answers. And I think that's going to be a more effective way to use film.
Coach, just thinking about, kind of teacher speak here for a minute. I know there's a lot of coaches who are obviously teachers too, and thinking about, the term formative assessment and those kind of quick little check-ins that we do during class, whether it's a thumbs up, thumbs down. There's a lot of we're using whiteboards and kids writing an answer down, and just those quick little check-ins. It seems like Edpuzzle is offering that with, watching game film. Is it able to track player responses, and can you track by players? Can you just track what they wrote in or what they selected, A, B, C, D? How does that part of it work?
It can track just about anything you just mentioned there. It tracks everyone's answer. You can see kind of if there's, like, if I offer a multiple choice answer and a lot of guys happen to get it wrong, if I say, hey, rate our spacing on this, and they all think it's great and I don't think it's great, then we got to have a little talk about what great spacing looks like, something like that. So yes, you can track everybody's answer. You can go in and look at their short answers. So the ones that spark the discussion, where there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, it's just kind of a discussion point for your team to have. You can go in there and check to see what they wrote. I mean, that's how I use it in class. When I'm teaching English, I teach a junior English class, and so they're on there quite a bit, and I'm talking to them about writing, and so I figured you could probably just do the same thing about basketball.
Something that comes up a lot now is teaching decision making, and I know you're a big proponent of that. You use a lot of great SSGs with your teams. You've shared a lot of great SSGs here with Get Better Basketball Live. But just thinking about teaching decision making, I'm seeing some great opportunities, with an Edpuzzle, and where you can pause and really have players become more reflective. Is that something that you're going to plan to do with your players this year, and how else do you plan to use it?
Yeah, I think that is a good piece there. The ability to stop it wherever you want, so the guys can see see the action frozen, and see the decision-making process happen a little bit slower. I think that's going to be very useful. I think the second thing that it creates is, we've all been in film rooms where a guy makes a pretty obvious mistake, and a coach might call him out on it, but as a group, maybe you don't want to, the teammates don't want to necessarily say something about it. I know that's definitely happened where I could say, hey, how's our spacing right here? Or whose fault was it that we gave up this layup? And the answer is obvious, but people don't want to say it because they don't want to hurt feelings and stuff like that. I think this eliminates that. It allows guys to be honest about, what do we see here? Was this shot any good? Was it average? Was it a terrible decision? What was it? And so I think it allows guys to have some honesty, because it's not like I'm going to, point across the room and say, hey, he thought that shot was terrible. But that kid can write, hey, I thought that shot was terrible. And I'll take that feedback, and I'll see if kind of guys are all looking at things the same way. And I think that honesty piece and that's going to be helpful, and it's going to spark some discussion. So really, film time is not going to really be film time. We might watch it once more together. But then really it's just going to be discussion time after that about the answers that we came up with.
I think too that, great points there. And just watching film, for players to be able to go on their own now with Huddle, they have 24/7 access, so they can go on and get game film anytime they want. But what are they looking for? So you're really teaching them what to look for, what they need to be aware of in situations.
Yep.
As you said, you can pause it and you can look at the decision. But I really like what you brought up there, which is, players being able to look at it and have conversations and discussions, and really thinking about film studies being more player-led than coach-led. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity for that. And coaches talk about that a lot. They want teams that are player-led. They want more player voice. I think you're offering up a really great opportunity, which brings me to my next question is, as you're thinking about using this with your team, are you thinking about, clips that you're going to have players look at, full game breakdown? How would you recommend coaches use this, thinking about how you use it in the classroom and then how you might use it, with basketball players?
So I've done a little bit of Edpuzzle PD. So I've gone through like their level 3 professional development. And so their recommendation is no more than a minute to a minute and a half per grade level. So if you're in high school, that's 10 to 15 minutes. I think that's the longest clip I'd probably share with some questions added in. Mine typically in my classroom are 5 or 6 minutes sometimes. And so that's, I think, try to keep them in that range because, unless you're asking very engaging questions, even with those questions, people are going to be distracted, and 15 minutes is a lot of time. Which makes me think back to days where I was trying to show whole game films and going, man, that was a bad move. So, you live and you learn, but I think this is a better way.
So just thinking about today, what we're going to see, what are you going to take us through? I know coaches are probably interested in learning about Edpuzzle, or there might be some coaches that know Edpuzzle but want to see how you're going to use this with your basketball team. So what are we gonna see today from you?
Sure. Today, so I went back in the archives a little bit. We had a few of our old games on YouTube, so I picked one that we kind of a mix of good and bad. So I just picked a random 5-minute stretch in a game that we ended up winning. But I picked a random 5-minute stretch early on in the game where we played well for some bits of it. We played poorly for some bits of it. And I thought it was a good kind of snippet of both kind of things that we were doing well at the time and then things that we also needed to work on. And I think that's what film should be, in my opinion. I know some guys kind of work at one or the other. I always think film should be realistic. So we went back into the 16-17 season. So a few of those guys are gone on into to college and the military right now. So if they're watching, get a little throwback of the good times. We were, in that year, we played pack line defense. And so some of the questions have to do with our defensive positioning. And then on offense, we ran the like Brad Underwood spread offense against man-to-man. And so some of the questions are about that, because at this point in the season, they really knew both of those things well enough that we shouldn't be making a ton of mistakes with them, but still not perfect with them yet, so that there are some mistakes here and there.
You made a great point before too that I just want to bring back up, which is the amount of time, those 10 to 15 minutes, you can get a lot of value. That kind of less is more mentality, trying to get through a whole game film. There could be a time and a place for it, but really think about practice time, think about kids that have stuff outside of basketball, their schoolwork and stuff. So you bring them in, you get that 10 to 15 minute session. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And I wanted to ask you to kind of go along with that. Would you always do this as a film session as a team, or would you maybe send them a 5-minute clip, after a game or something they could watch on their own and they could answer those questions and then come back and talk about that? Have you thought about that part of it? Is this more of a team activity, or would you do a little bit of both with your teams?
I think I would have them do it individually, just like I send it out to my kids individually in my classroom. And then once everybody's taken a look at it, then we discuss kind of how the answers went. Because if I'm seeing some things that are in line, with what I'm seeing, if everybody's kind of seeing the same stuff when they're looking at the film, then we could talk about that, about how that's smart. But more so, I'm looking for inconsistencies. If half the team thinks this was a great shot and half the team thinks that was not a good decision, then we got to have a discussion about, which side of the group is probably more so correct. So I think that's how we'll use it. Guys will fill it out individually and look at it on their own time, knowing that, hey, on Tuesday or whatever, we're going to come in and we're going to talk about kind of the results there. And I think that's going to go well. That's the plan to how we're going to use it anyway.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your game film too, and also just not the great clips, but also some of the more critical ones. I think it's going to give coaches a lot of ideas of how they could use this with their team, and also what questions can look like when things go really well, or when you want players to reflect a little more and maybe things don't go well. So let's jump into it.
All right, Coach. So this is a game I uploaded, as we mentioned, from a few years back. So for folks that aren't familiar with Edpuzzle, you can use any video that you can. This was one that was previously uploaded to YouTube. You probably should use it in conjunction if you have like Google Classroom or something like that. You can easily assign it actually as an assignment. So if you want to create a classroom that is just for your basketball team, that's the easiest way to assign it. But you don't have to do that. You can send it out through email or something like that if you needed to. This video I made the other day, and I added probably 10 or 12 questions to it. As you can see on the bottom right hand corner, you can edit it in any way possible. So this is a 5-minute clip from a full game film. So I just wanted to pick out just an average 5-minute clip of us playing basketball that included some positives and negatives. And then once I get into editing, there's several things I can do. I can chop it down and edit it down to just the clips that I want. In this case, I kept it pretty simple. I just picked a 5-minute blip of time in the first quarter. I can add questions in. I can add multiple choice questions in. I can add open-ended questions in. I can add voice notes in if I need to, or just type out notes as well for anything that I might have noticed. So this is a game from a few years back. So I'll let it run for a little bit, and then you'll kind of see how it works, where we're just going to let the film go for a little bit, and then it'll pause, and there'll be a question that pops up to the side. Just for a reference point, we're the team in white right here.
It's nice you're able to pull those short clips, and your players are able to watch 5 minutes of film with these quick little check-ins. Obviously a lot of value there. So you guys are the team that just broke the press here.
Yep. And so we just broke the press. I think we should have gotten the layup out of it. We made a good decision to not throw it to the coffin corner. We made kind of we had an immediate 3-on-2. We threw to a guy on the block, and for some reason he hesitated to go up with it or create some contact, and he kicks it out. And that basically allowed their defense to recover. So we broke the press. We didn't turn it over, but I think we missed an opportunity for a really easy basket here. And not only that, it set up some pretty bad spacing. Right now we're going to have to hustle to get better spacing. So it wasn't terrible, but I just thought we should have gotten a layup out of it. So if I'm looking at this, the question for the players is, what's one thing we did well in this press break, and what's one thing we could have done better? I think the obvious answer is, well, we broke it quickly with a couple of passes, and we hit ahead twice, which got us an easy look at the hoop. The one thing we should have done better is to take the shot, at the end of it. Worst case scenario, I think we probably draw a foul there and we get to the line. But instead we kick it out to the kid he kicked it out to is a pretty decent 3-point shooter, so I understand why he did it. But I think that you probably got to go up with that where when you catch that ball on the block right there.
Coach, do players have to? Just two questions here, I guess. Do players have to answer the question to move on to the next clip?
Well, in theory, they could skip it, but I can see that they'll skip it. So as a coach, you're going to tell your players, I want you to answer all the questions. Just like if you were a teacher in a classroom, I'd rather have you answer it, and maybe I disagree with your answer rather than you skip it. They can always, what I'd rather have them do if they're not sure, is hit the rewatch button, and it'll just go back. It'll go back to the beginning, and they can watch it again, because they don't know what the question is that I'm going to ask at the end of that 10 or 20 seconds. And so maybe they go back and rewatch the break again, and they look for something a little more specifically the second time around.
So the other question I wanted to ask, just looking, I see this is more of an open-ended question. So what are some of the other questions or types of formats? I know you mentioned multiple choice, open-ended. What are the other options that coaches could use here?
Sure. So I kind of did that one as if I was a player. So I submitted one, and now I followed that one up with a multiple choice question here, and you'll see it. It says radar spacing, and there's 1 through 4 is excellent. You'll see on the bottom here it's a little bit out of whack, and there's no way to control that. What Edpuzzle does is they scramble the every 2 months or is in a change order. So we were running the Brad Underwood spread offense that year, and we are actually not in great position here. We're very bunched to that left-hand side. We really should be higher and wider and a little more balanced. And so I don't think our spacing is is great. I can't remember what I actually put in for an answer here. I don't know if it's awful, but I think I might have put that when I originally looked at this because I wasn't too happy with it.
Will the players be able to
But
see?
yeah, so
Will the players be able to see what your recommended answer is after they answer the
only
question?
after they click on the answer, right? So I definitely, as a coach, you can go in and pin what the right answer is. So if you want to have more than one right answer, right? If it's kind of like iffy and you're like, have two things that you might have as acceptable answers, then you could do that too. You could put all four. Like if you ask a certain question, like there's one later on in the video about like whose fault is it that we gave up this layup? And I put all five guys' names on there, and then the correct answer is you better click all five because nobody did a good job. So yeah, you can make however many right or wrong answers that you need to. In this case, it's because I don't like our spacing, and I think a lot of it stems back from that decision not to take the layup. And so I'll submit that. Okay, nope, coach thought this was below average, right? And so if I'm a player, I would know that I think this is awful. Coach didn't think it was awful, but it's definitely not good. And so they get that little red screen there. They know that they've got it wrong. And I'm not grading them. It's not like it's going in a grade book, but it is good an assessment tool to see if we're looking at things the same way.
That instant feedback is awesome for the players to be able to get that.
All right. So this next part here is just something for coaches to take a note of. Like, not everything's got to be a question. So the first one I did was an open-ended question. The second one I did was a multiple choice. And this is just a note. I thought the two guys that were in there rebounding did it. We end up turning the ball over, but it's after about 2 or 3 tips and attempts to score. And we're basically rebounding 2v4. And they're just, I thought was a tremendous effort. And I feel like as you got to notice those sort of things and stop the film for those sort of things. Because if not, then it's, you got to praise that and value that so you can get some more of it from the other guys that are on the team. And then maybe also ask the other 3 guys what they were doing.
Even if you use this 3 or 4 times a year, like this is a valuable tool early in the season. Teach players how to watch film, what they need to look for, how to be a little bit more reflective as they're watching film. So I just think this is such a great tool that whether you have Huddle or use another type of software, there's a lot of value in putting a video up on this in just 5 minutes and have players, kind of assess things.
Another thing too, coach, is as the video plays here, I think that looking at the amount of minutes that the video takes is one thing, but consider the fact that guys are going to have to put some genuine thought into it for that amount of time. And so a 5-minute video might take 10 minutes to get through, might take 15, depending on how much thought they want to give it, how much they want to rewind and look at it, and how well they want to do with it. You have some highly competitive guys on most teams and a lot of good students on a lot of teams that just, they don't like to get questions wrong. So they're going to go back and try to get it right no matter what it was. I know that there's some guys on this team that the guy on the break here is a valedictorian of his class. So I'm sure that if I was to do this 3 years ago when this kid was playing, he would probably not want to get any of these questions wrong, just kind of knowing his mentality. The point guard catching the outlet is now a Marine. So I guess this is probably the same thing for him too. This is another, opinion question, but in the form of a multiple choice here, where I said, rate this defensive possession. And that's probably one that kids would have to probably go back and rewatch. And so they could just hit this and they're going to watch it from the beginning of the possession. We're a pack line team this year. And so we're just looking for our guys straying outside the pack. Are we in good help position? I'd say in general we are. We stop at a couple of drives and we force a contested mid-range shot and we get the rebound. So to me, it's a pretty damn good pack line possession. That's the exact type of shot you want. That guy wasn't one of their better shooters, so we forced one of their kind of 4th or 5th options to take a mid-range. This is the first time we're getting, even though we're a couple minutes in, it kind of goes to show you, right? Like this is the first time we're having an offensive kind of a set that we've run. We've had a lot of breaks and some fouls and kind of just playing a little more up tempo because we wanted to score quickly if we could. But once we got into this offense, we did want to talk about kind of decisions we were making and things like that. So in this offense, we got one guy clearing through, and then one guy, this second guy that's right underneath the basket there, ideally should be on that block, could come all the way over to the block and post up, and he doesn't, and that really screws us up because then the handoff isn't there, and we can't get where we need to go, and then we're dribbling into trouble and we turn the ball over. Well, actually, we get out of it and we actually get an accidental layup out of it. But that's, I think, a good example of like the kid's going to watch that and go, hey, we scored a couple points. And I'm going to watch that and go, that was a bad possession. You know, that was not a good possession. The first guy cut through late, kind of slow. Second guy barely cut at all, didn't even make it to the block, kind of just hung out underneath the basket. And then that same guy gets 2 points out of it. It's like, you got to point that out the same way you pointed out the scrappy offensive rebounding before, where it's like, it turned out okay, but you can't really judge the play by the result of it. I don't think it was a very good offensive possession. So I just asked him what's one thing I think we could have done better. And I think that we need to cut harder, right? You could even be a simple answer like that. I don't need our kids to be, you know, authors when they're writing these short answers. They can be that. That could be that simple for me. And there's not a, you know, a kid might look at that and see something else that we could have done better. So it's just kind of up to them. And I think that's where that honesty piece comes into, like, you know, in a film that I could say, what's one thing we could have done better? And the whole team knows that, hey, Alex could have cut through a little harder and posted up, but they're not going to say it, right? Because Alex is their friend. But on a video, what's one thing we could have done better? It's pretty obvious that we didn't cut very hard through there. And so I would hope that they would answer that that way. And this is the one I was telling you about earlier, so you'll see the multiple choice come up on this one. So whose fault is that? Whose fault is that layup? And the answer is everybody, right? That guy dribbles through the whole squad and scores a reverse layup on the opposite side. That's on everybody. Oh, I got it wrong. I had one clicked and then I clicked off of it. So it's on everyone. I meant to click everyone. So we'll see how honest everyone is. And we tend to say that anyway, like, you know, layups, giving up layups is everybody's fault. And so I think everybody should get this one right. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of goes on like that. The one thing that you haven't seen yet is like an audio note. So I'll see if I can get to one of those. I think I have one towards the end here. I can skip forward as a coach, but players really can't skip forward. So this is a possession here where in this offense, I'll try to bring it back. Yep. In this offense, if your point guard waves the wing through, you'll see him kind of give him a wave right there. He wants that wing to be cutting through the opposite side and getting a pin down on the left-hand side. And the ball gets there super late. And by the time it gets there, it's closed out and we don't really have much. So in the end, I have a voice note on there for kids to listen to. It ends up being a turnover because it's just clunky, right? So as we get to the voice note here, my voice note is about the importance of getting to the weak side early. And when kids play that, what they'll hear is a 19-second clip of me, something I would say if we were watching in film together. So I'll just play it. This play came to a halt because we got the ball to the weak side late. We waved our strong side guard through. He got the 2 screens he needed, and that ball needed to get to the weak side much faster so that he could isolate and attack 1v1. It didn't. It results in a sloppy possession.
That's awesome that you're able to do that, Coach, and put in that, you know, the voice note, you have the questions, you know, and like you said, it's a 5-minute clip, but, you know, for players, they're probably watching for 15 or 20 minutes and they're really, you know, focused in on the areas that you want them to focus in on. As coaches watch this, how challenging is it to upload a video and then embed these questions into the video? Would you be able to just give us a quick example?
So whenever you're going, you use Edpuzzle, you can just go to their search bar, and I have a different game of ours from that same season, and this is what'll pop up. Basically, is this screen here, and it looks a little awkward. But this blue screen here is like, okay, if you wanted to watch the whole game, you could do that. But we're not going to do that. We're going to watch kind of a small section of it, right? So if I wanted to just watch the first few minutes, I would just drag that blue button all the way to there. Cool, that's the clip that we're going to watch, right? And if you want to make cuts, you can. Like if you want to watch clips here and there, you definitely can do that. There's an ability to cut those things. And just have specific plays that you want. That's definitely doable too. So you can edit your own videos. To keep it simple, I'll just kind of go with these first ones. If I wanted to do like a voiceover, just a straight voiceover of me talking over the video while players watch it, I could do that, which is kind of what you would do in normal, like a traditional film session. But I actually don't know if I want to do that. I would much rather ask questions. And so once I have kind of the clip that I want to use, in this case, it's the first a few minutes of the game. This is a team that was vastly better than us. It's like a state title contender. As you're going to see in the video, they're much bigger and faster than us. But I thought we played pretty well in the first quarter. Anyway, I thought we really did a lot of things that didn't result in points, and we did them well. But anyway, once you hit this, you would hit the questions, and as you can see, like it took me 2 seconds. I had the URL. I just copied and pasted in the search bar, pops right up because this game is available on YouTube. Our school does a nice job of filming everything and storing it on YouTube for everybody to watch. And then you got questions you can ask at any point in time. So even if I'm starting out like this, the angle of this film is strange, and I apologize. It's kind of the way the gym is in the space. But any place I want to go to, I can just pause it and stop it. In this game, we're playing a 1-2-2, and we're looking to get traps in the corners against this team. We didn't match up very well with them man to man, so we were trying to play some scramble defense and try to force some turnovers. So give up an easy catch there. Okay, so I might pause it right there and ask, like, if I'm asking an open-ended question, like rate our defensive, or how good was our defensive positioning?
And that question's going to pop up right where you paused it? Correct,
right? So I'll pause it right there. I'll hit save, and you'll see it pop up with this little teardrop underneath the screen. And so when players are watching it, it's not gonna let them go past that point in the video without answering that question. I could make that a multiple choice question if I wanted to. If I said, hey, I'm gonna scrap that and I'm gonna ask a multiple choice question instead, I could do that. So if I wanted to, like, usually when I say like rate our defensive positioning or radar, I think that would be good for those to be numbers. And so we're all kind of working on the same thing. We know what excellent looks like, or we know what less than average looks like, that kind of thing. So anyway, so you would proceed through that.
Is the red X, I'm just looking on your screen now, is that when you would put if they get it wrong, that's where you would put the wrong, you got it wrong? And
yep. So if I said rate our defensive positioning, right, I could go, okay, I thought it was okay, so 3 is good, 4 would be excellent, and then you can add in options, right? So 2 and 1, you can add those in as options as well, right? So 1 is usually, we call that awful, and we'll call 2 needs work, right? And then we'll hit save. So now we got 3 wrong answers and a right one, and we're good, right? So just the same way you would put together a quiz for an English class or any other class you might teach, then that'll pop up there. And again, it'll scramble those. The kids are going to get to that, and even though 3 is the right answer and it's on top here, it'll scramble those into different positions for different kids automatically.
There's a lot of value in, as I've said a couple times, just players watching those clips and trying to rate where they feel like you guys are in that possession, but then getting that instant feedback with, that wasn't the right rating, or just a quick either a voice clip or a quick note clip, or them having to kind of evaluate it and put it into writing. So there's just different ways that you can do it with the players, but there's a ton of value in them having to be more reflective, as we've said a couple times here, but it's really cool.
Yeah, and in this, and you'll notice too, like, this is a good 5-minute video, this is a 3-minute video, just kind of how I shortened it down. Once you get good at this, I mean, if you have a video that's already on YouTube, it might take you 10 minutes to put this together, and it might take the players 10 minutes to complete, but it might result in a nice 20-minute to a half-hour discussion about how you're playing. If you have a video that you need to upload, in general, what I've found is it's about a minute for every a minute to upload per minute of video, roughly. So that's why I might advise kind of uploading smaller clips, because obviously it's going to get on there and be workable a little bit. a little bit faster. When I'm creating stuff for English class and my videos are, 6 to 10 minutes, that's about usually the upload time. And so you do have to wait for that to upload if you're putting your own video on there. It's not on there yet, but that's not much time considering what the value that you're going to get out of it in the long run.
Well, thanks so much for taking us through your game film, coach, and then also the software and how to incorporate in questions. And I really like the questions you're asking players and how it's going to help them to reflect on the game and really their own ownership and accountability in the game. Just, thinking about this software, I see a lot of different opportunities and things you might be able to do with it. We obviously focused in on game film today. Are there any other ideas that you want to share with coaches as to how you might use Edpuzzle with your teams?
Sure. I think there's two that I'm thinking about doing. One is to film practice. Film drills in practice. So especially the ones that were emphasizing decision-making, because I think you can learn as much from your decision-making in practice as you can in the game. And you have more practices in the game. So there's plenty of opportunity to film those too. So I think that's one thing we're definitely going to do. And we'll ask similar type questions. A second way that I think we might use it is if we're going to install something new, like for instance, I think of like a baseline out of bounds play. If I was to diagram that on Fast Draw and say, hey, we're going to learn a baseline out, we're going to call it 7. We're going to run it, we're going to try to get it in the last few minutes of practice. We're going to go over our baseline outs and we're adding this one. Please watch this diagram, answer these questions. And my thought is like, if that we're going to do that, that's going to save me some time in practice. Everyone's going to come in and you'll know as a coach, hey, these guys have watched the video. Heck, I might even put out the 5 guys that scored best on the video, right? Who knows, right? How you might use that, but it's a nice way to keep guys accountable for, I've got to be mentally ready to come to practice and learn. And look, it doesn't guarantee they're going to learn, learn it perfectly just by watching that video, but it does eliminate some time of like walking through the play and slowing down practice. That I know that most coaches, even though you have to do it, it's never something where it always feels like it's taking forever and we're not doing anything, right? And I feel like that it gets kids going into the play and that the mental part of like learning, at least the first couple steps are already taken care of.
Many, many great opportunities to use this software as you shared. And I love that, thinking about practice, not just games as well. So as we wrap up here, in your experience, I know you've coached for a lot of years and obviously have probably watched a lot of game film with different teams at different levels. So in your experience, how do you feel this can best help coaches and what type of difference is this going to make for you as a coach, who has watched film, as I noted, for a lot of years?
I think it takes the burden off the coaches to come up with solutions or come up with, quote unquote, the answers. I think that you're asking kids to seek out answers and seek out solutions. And I think that that's what you want out of a team, is them to be able to figure it out on their own a little bit more and kind of need to look at you and check with you a little bit less. As you go through the season, I think that there should be less and less wrong answers, right? Once kids understand the concepts that we're shooting for and the questions that we end up repeating over and over again, then you should have a lot of correct answers and guys should be on the same page with that. But it does take, I think, the burden off the coach to feel like he's saying the same thing over and over and over again. It's more on the players to engage and buy in and really focus on smaller details that they may not have before, because it's very easy to check out in a film room, even if whether you played all the minutes or none of the minutes, it's easy to check out. And I think this just doesn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, I love that, coach. And I feel like, you're going to get players as the season goes on, just to piggyback off your point, that are going to be like in the moment, they're going to see things a little more clearly, or obviously when they're watching film, they're going to see things and really reflect on what's happening in game situations and maybe take more ownership in those situations as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to share this. I feel like it's a great opportunity for coaches to think about film differently, less of a coach leadership or coach taking the lead, and more player-led film sessions, or even players watching film or practice, or as you mentioned, fast model diagrams, and really come into practice with that preparation already done beforehand. So I appreciate all the points and everything that you shared tonight. I have a feeling some coaches may want to reach out to you with questions about Edpuzzle, with questions about film. And I feel like what we're doing here, and really what you're bringing to the table, is thinking about film differently. The days of a coach with a laser pointer up on the board and pointing out that kid, on the field or on the basketball court, those could be gone. You have real opportunities for kids to, take ownership of this. So if coaches do want to reach out to you, is there a way that they could contact you?
Yep, pretty active on Twitter, Benjamin Murph 55. You can get at me there. My email is bmurphy@sad55.org. That's my school email. I will get that every day, so I'll be able to help you out. The other thing I was thinking too, it just occurred to me, is like during COVID, you're not necessarily sure when your next practice might be, right? And so this might be something you can do to keep kids engaged in the meantime, right? Because I know in Maine, we went from practicing, our soccer teams went from practicing to not practicing to practicing. And in those 2 weeks, man, that would have been pretty cool to have some practice footage and here's what we're doing well, and let's answer some questions about that. Like I think about those things, and I think it could be useful on those downtimes to still get those mental reps.
Coach, that's a great point. It's interesting. A coach on Twitter I was just talking to, and we were going back and forth about some stuff offensively, and he said for 2 weeks now they're out of practice. So,
Yep.
Obviously states start at different times, and their state started, and now they're kind of in quarantine mode, so to speak, at their school. So they might have a real opportunity to use this software and think about film differently as well. Well, thank you so much. Always appreciate you coming on. Always appreciate you sharing. Whether it's small-sided games or thinking about film differently, I feel like there's a lot of great takeaways for coaches.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate the talk of ball anytime.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Have a good night.